All right, we'll get started. Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Nothing too formal today on the agenda. We do have Knighthawks General Manager Dan Carey, Head Coach Mike Hazen, Defenseman Dan Coates on the call. If you do have a question, please identify yourself as well as your affiliation prior to asking, and be sure to identify who you're directing your question to. With that being said, I will turn it over to General Manager Dan Carey for a quick opening remark, and then we'll get right into the Q&A. Dan, go ahead.
Thanks, Warren. And I just want to say thanks for everybody to take the time with us today. I know we're definitely excited to get the season started this Saturday, and always appreciate the coverage of the media, whether we it's in our favor or not. But I appreciate what you guys do. So I'll open up to Warren to facilitate the call here today, and excited to get things going.
Thanks, Dan. Andrew, go ahead. And just remember, like I said, if you can identify who you're directing your question to prior to that'd be great.
Thanks, Warren. Good morning, guys. I think I'll start here with a question that I think is for both Dan Carey and Mike Hazen. So at this point, we know the captains for this team haven't been announced yet, but what do you look for in a leadership group when you go to make those decisions?
Go ahead, Mike.
Your mic is on, Daniel. You jump in there first, bud.
From our standpoint, there's a lot that goes into it. I think we've really established what we believe is a strong culture here, and our leaders are the ones to kind of carry that through our locker room, continue to elevate that part of it, and enhance our culture. And I think we have a really strong group here that is committed to what we do on a daily basis. They're just good people who get it. They're committed. They have experience within our league and know what it takes to build the culture that we need to win a championship. So, there's a lot of, different qualities when it comes to leaders. And, I think those qualities working together, have to be strong. And I think we have a really good group here. Even the guys who won't have a letter on their jersey this year, we have a number of guys that are going to, contribute to that culture and that leadership group that we have. So, a lot of great qualities within our locker room that we have, but there's a very specific importance to that and establishing who those guys are.
Yeah, and for me, they're guys that have to. Again, I think we lean on our veteran guys and our leaders to, again, obviously relay the messages that we're trying to spell on floor, off floor. And for me, I think the biggest thing is that they are doing the right things, and they're guys that we can continually point to say, do what they do and we'll be successful. And like they're able to hold each other accountable, the team wise, by matching their voice with their output, basically, right? If one thing is off, then it just you lose your voice. So they don't have to be local. Nider's an assistant captain that's been here since day one. He's not vocal, but what he does on floor, off floor is something that everybody needs to follow. And if you're not doing what Nider does, like you're hurting us type deal. And again, they hold themselves accountable as far as the team goes, and they also hold us accountable if they're going to let us know if we're doing something wrong as far as the staff is concerned. That's an open door policy. They come to us, and then again, we can correct it together, and again, make sure everybody is on the same page and hearing the same messages, and yeah, just keep us going in the right direction.
Hazer, to stick with you, obviously a lot of excitement around Travis McConvey entering this year. What have you seen from him in training camp?
Growth, a lot of growth. Every time he's been together as a group here, Thomas has been taking steps forward. Again, big, strong, athletic, has got a great IQ for the game, but he's been early. Having trouble finding the spacing on the floor. And again, just playing in a bit too much of a phone booth as Kyle continually talked to him about. So he's just, he's finding his way with this group, and they're getting a lot of good chemistry together. and again, he's helping. He's going to help take some pressure off of Fieldsy with a little bit of ball carrying ability. But he's so smart. He knows the time to get in and out, shoot the ball, swing the ball. And again, he's continually getting better. And there's sky's the limit for him because he's just going to continue to be learning and executing here at the end of the day.
When you talk about his growth throughout training camp, I mean, as he enters this season, like, what do you think will be his biggest adjustment coming into box lacrosse?
Well, right? He's been outside. He hasn't played indoor in the last couple of years, but he's a kid that's grown up in Mimico. So Mimico breeds a lot of great lacrosse. So he's just going to get used to the surroundings. He's going to get used to the atmosphere and the ups and downs of it all. But that's where we have good leaders around him, and great experienced guys. They're going to help him navigate that stuff. Like, again, we kind of talked about, you can't be too high and you can't get too low. So he's just going to kind of find that way, and the leaders are going to help him get through
that. Coatsy, a couple questions for you. I guess starting out this season, what are some differences and similarities when you look at this team, maybe on paper or what you've experienced through training camp? How are they different and similar from this year versus last year's group?
I'd say our offense definitely looks different. With the addition of Dan Lomas, Thomas McConvey, Kyle Waters, that looks like a different group. Defensively, we kind of have the same makeup as we did last year with the addition of Ethan O'Connor. Greg Harnett's coming back from injury, but as far as personnel, it might change a little bit, but our message has been, every time we're together, we want to continue to grow. We're pursuing progress here. So, you try to learn from your mistakes from previous years and what you can do better. But ultimately, we're just kind of focused on the season.
And obviously you've been playing for a long time. I mean, how is the NLL? We talked about unified standings and stuff earlier in the week, but just the style of play in this league, the pacing, everything. How has it evolved from where you are now, where the league is now, you in Rochester versus, say, your first couple of seasons in Colorado?
You're testing my brain cells at 11 a.m. Certainly, and not to diss, where the game was, 10, 12, 13 years ago, but it just continues to evolve. I think a big part of that is coaching. Coaches are getting their eyes on film more. Or it seems like if something throws some wrinkle on offense, by in the next week or the following week, everyone's running the same sort of play. So it's great. And I think the player pool just continues to expand. Obviously, you're seeing the American influx. But it's fun, right? It's competitive. Like we talked about earlier in the week, everyone's good. You have to be ready to play your A game. But it's funny. I would certainly like to go back and watch some old film and see what we're doing then to now.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Those are all the questions for me.
Go ahead, Adam.
Perfect. I've just got a couple here. Good to see you all and excited for this NLL season. So Adam Levy, NLL, and IL Indoor. This one, I think, goes first for GM Carey. Good to see you again. So obviously last year, and we've talked over the last few years how this team has come together. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of unexpected things that have happened. COVID, roster changes, things like that. So last year, you guys make your first playoff appearance, which is what you guys were hoping for. With the huge jump in your record from last year to the year prior, is there now a heightened expectation of what you guys are expecting to do this season?
Yeah, it's kind of hard. We always have high expectations of ourselves. That being said, I know, we, from people on the outside, can look at first few years as maybe disappointing, but we've been okay with sticking with the process and what we need to do to build a championship team that's going to have long-term success, right? We want that sustainability. So expectations last year were to make the playoffs and to compete for a championship. We ultimately made the playoffs. That was one of our goals. We weren't successful in winning a championship. So that doesn't change. I think from looking at our roster, there's been some changes, and I think they've been positive. And coming into training camp or coming out of training camp, we're talking right now within our roster, and the problems that we have are different than the problems that we've had in the past when it comes to our discussion on who's in the lineup, who's on the active roster. You know, we've released some players that are good players and have done a good job for us over the years. And that to us shows that we've grown within the caliber of players that we have within our roster. So, you know, I think from our standpoint, we believe that we're a better team. So our expectations, you know, are going to continue in the path of, you know, we're competing for a championship. So that being said, we know that it's got to be one game at a time, and we're not thinking coming out of training camp that we're any different than what we have been in the past. We have to earn every single win in this league, and every week we have to prepare for that. And if we get off track a little bit, we got to find a way to get back on track with our you know, mindset and process, and make sure we put the work in. So we have what we believe the right guys to do that, and now we got to go out and play. And I think there's adjustments throughout the league, throughout the year, from our coaching staff, from our players, from my standpoint. So going into the season, we have to see what we have and address, you know, the potential needs that we have throughout. But again, it's been, you know, kind of a slow process, but that we're okay with that, right? It hasn't been something that in year one, year two, we had to, you know, put everything into it and try and win a championship. It's been something that we've said to our fan base and said to ourselves that we have to have patience, knowing that we have a super, you know, competitive group here, people that hate to lose from top to bottom, and that is part of what drives us on a daily basis. So we're trying to focus on what we look at, you know, our roster as, and know that we're still building. We're not satisfied and thinking that we're all set here. We're good. We want to continue to add players and develop our guys into a championship team that has long-term success. You know, and you've seen across the league, there's been teams that have had those caliber rosters, like Buffalo, for an example. You know, they've number of, you know, finalists, you know, they've been in the championship final and hadn't had that success until last year. So it goes to show you how tough it is to win in this league, but we really believe in our culture is probably most important, and then what we have within our roster to get the job done on the floor.
And so, Coach Carey, Coach Hazen, excuse me. Obviously, GM Carey was just saying how it's one game at a time. So, if you look at last season, it was a 7-2 very hot start in that first half, and then 3-6 in that second half of the season. Obviously, not the best second half that you guys were hoping for. For all the guys that have returned from last year, have you addressed the second half of that season and tried to come up with or talked about how to avoid what happened in the second half this season?
No, no, we haven't actually specifically spoken about that. Again, I think we gain that experience, and again, this league is always like this, right? And you try to limit the steepness of the ups and downs of it. So I think that experience right now we'll leave it on an individual basis that we've learned from it. If we get in those ruts and we will at some point, I think we'll draw upon it then. But right now, I think we're looking for, you know, making sure that we're stepping on the floor, being our best. And I think our training camp is kind of hopefully given us that ability to do that. When we step on the floor here this week against Calgary, we're going to be real good. Practices has been dynamite. And again, we'll focus 1 week at a time, and we'll deal with the situations as they arise here.
And then just finally for you, Coach, you know, there have been some significant changes offensively. Obviously, no Holden Cattoni, no Thomas Hogarth. If you look at the numbers, That was about 20 to 25% of the chunk of goals scored from the team. Obviously, you got Thomas McConvey coming in, but through this preseason and training camp, how do you think the offense looks? And the offense was a huge part of the team's success. What can we expect from the offense this year?
Again, different. I don't think we have to really rely on, Fieldsy, Holden, and Thomas to get that goals for us. I think we're better, all well-rounded team. Again, we're a bit younger, but our young guys, again, we expect a bit of uptick from them. That's going to hopefully help replace, as far as numbers go, what we lost in those two players. Again, I think Kyle Waters coming in here. We're going to see an uptick in production from him. Austin from being a first-year guy to a second-year guy. Turner Evans is going to have an uptick. And again, we talk about doing it by committee. I think we're a lot more well-rounded at this point. Just watching practices, I think it's tougher on our defenders this year than it has been even in practices. Just the way the ball moves around a little bit more, a little bit quicker, a little more precise, and everybody's kind of pulling the rope the same way so far. So we expect an uptick. And again, at the end of the day, we got to show it, right? So Calgary this week is going to give us some more answers here beyond training camp.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Brendan's all yours.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys, for joining us. And Dan, I want to start with the first question for you. I'm always intrigued by trades on draft day, and you made a huge trade with Calgary. Ironically, that's the first opponent this week that you brought Kyle Waters in that trade, but also you got Ben McDonald in from that trade. Can you just take us through the trade, how that happened, and why it was important to bring in Kyle and get Ben as that draft pick?
Ben was actually a player that we had targeted as a need of ours. So trying to find, he's a big, athletic, aggressive. He's got an edge to him, left-handed defender. So, we've watched him for the last couple of years, thought highly of him. He was definitely a guy that was pretty high on our list when it comes to our draft depth. So we had conversations with Calgary for a while at that point. And, Kyle was a 5th overall draft pick a few years ago that, I don't believe had, the opportunity in Calgary that he would have had here in Rochester. So, given his, kind of potential that we expected and thought might be a good fit here, it just seemed to work. So there was definitely, many conversations that we had, and going into that morning, it wasn't on the table. We didn't expect to do it, but, things kind of go on and as we watch the draft board and see what players are available, he was a guy that we, Ben was a guy that we targeted, and I think he's going to be a good player for a long time in this league. So it was one that we didn't feel like we had to do, but it addressed the needs, and Thomas Hogarth did a good job for us, but a little bit different of a look with Kyle coming in, and we have high expectations of him. He's going to be a big part of our team and our offense. So it's yet to be seen, but for one that we felt like was a little bit more balance of what we got in return.
Great. And then you take a look at an acquisition like Keogh. I mean, that is a veteran. He's played in Rochester, the Knighthawks 1.0. How important is it to bring a veteran presence like that into this locker room as you're talking about building this young team who are still continuing to grow?
Yeah, it was important. Again, with there's some unknowns there. You bring Kyle in and had an expectation, but hadn't seen him with our team. Steven has a lot of experience, and he brings an edge to him offensively and can score goals. So that veteran kind of presence, and we bring in Dan Lomas. So adding, Steven and Dan to the mix of our guys, knowing that, we still have a younger group here. We haven't seen a lot of Steven. He hasn't been healthy to this point. He's getting closer, but so trying to understand how he fits in when it comes to the chemistry on the floor is something that we still, have yet to see. But there's always that, the intangibles that I think are important when we're bringing guys in. But sometimes that comes out in other guys as well. And I think Ryan Smith has done a really good job of being more vocal this year, given kind of the changes offensively. He's taken on a little bit more, of a meaningful role when it comes to the leadership. And then, I think Connor Field, same thing. So our guys that are quote unquote young, maybe aren't as young, and I think are ready to take a step when it comes to that side of it too. So, the additions that we brought in, there's definitely a lot of intangibles as well as what they can do, on the floor. But I think we have a good group in general as far as guys that can bring some experience and some fire to what we're looking for.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Dan. I appreciate it. And then, Coatsy, question for you. When you look at this defense, you've got a lot of guys on this defense that are really strong, really young. I mean, you've got Ryland for certainly, he gets a lot of the press, but you got guys like Mitch Ogilvie, who's still young, who's very good, first full season in the league last year, had a great season. Also, Matt Gilray. You guys have a very strong defense. What's the expectation for you guys defensively? Because a lot of people talked about the offense last year and the big season that Connor had and how many goals that Hoagie got and Katoni. But your defense, like, you guys really had a strong season as a unit last year. How do you grow from that?
Well, I'd say our expectation is that we need to be the hardest defense to play against. I think the identity of our team is we're athletic, we're young, guys can get up and down the floor, we're bigger. So for us, every time we're together, we're trying to grow. I think, with the addition of Ethan O'Connor, Ben McDonnell, guys like, Thomas Whitty coming back from injury, Ogilvie, these guys are stepping into, year 2 or year 3. And, our expectations, every time we're together, we're trying to grow. And I think, it's player led. Like, I think the addition of Ethan O'Connor and his experience the last couple of years has been great. And we're just trying to push each other. You're seeing that in practice. So, as far as expectations, as cliche as it sounds, we're just trying to get better every single day. And, this is a great opportunity for us heading into this weekend.
Great. Appreciate that. Coach, couple questions for you. I want to start off with Hartley. I mean, he took a huge leap last year and really established himself as that franchise type goalie that every team looks for. Can you talk about his maturity and the progression of his game, and what have you seen so far in training camp from him?
Yeah, he took a big step this year, and I think he's going to take another big step here moving forward as well. He's really taken an extra step as far as ownership in his position. He's doing a lot more back end work so far in training camp. And he's, between him and Hutchie, they're working together, but they're also communicating to the group in front of him on the floor what he wants to see, where he wants guys shooting from. And as a group, I think we're incorporating all that together to make sure we're all on the same page. Again, his fitness level is increased, but again, it's his mindset. Like, he's preparing himself every single game so far. In the 3 scrimmages, it's been good to see that it's kind of translated to him making some timely saves. And again, he's only had a half for the most part each scrimmage, but he was playing well. He's making timely saves that previously may have squeaked by him. But I think just the way he's preparing himself is really good, and he's right on par with like the Dan Coates and the Ethan O'Connors and Reister. Those guys put in time at home watching film, and right now he's doing that, and I think that's going to again be a key to our success. And the other thing, and not to discount it, Hutchie's helping him grow as well. So the two of them between each other are a great tandem, and they really get along. And the way Hutchie has played as well, I think it's just an added little piece in the back of the mind that we really do have 2 goaltenders that can step in and play.
And Dan Carey mentioned this a couple minutes ago about Ryan Smith, and he had a really great progression last year, and now with some of the changes on the offense, it looks like we're going to see even more progression with him. How has his game grown over the couple of years that he's been in the league?
Again, he's taken a step every time he's been on the floor, and I think this year now it's going to be. Again, he has a bigger voice now. Like I say, he doesn't have to follow. Again, it's tough to politically put it correctly, but he's a leader now. He's not following the directions of a couple other guys. Again, he's part of the mix, creating and speaking and talking, and the biggest thing, doing what we need as a group to be on the floor. So again, his confidence level is high. He had a great training camp as well. He's shooting the ball well. He's healthy. And again, just that next step is what we're going to need to have some success in that front end.
Great. Last question for me, and this might be the hardest question to maybe answer. I mean, when you look at Connor Fields, he had a truly historic season last year, over 100 points, 120 loose balls. I mean, that's unheard of for a guy at his position. It's hard to even replicate numbers like that, but how do you keep him from not like having all that burden on his shoulders to say, we're not looking necessarily for another 100 goal, 120 loose ball season. We need you just to be the best Connor Fields you are.
Yeah, and you know what? And the guys that are around him supporting him are hopefully going to make it. Again, it's never easy, right? Nothing ever comes easy. And again, he wouldn't want it to come easy, but it's going to make it a little the way we are designed. And if we can get on the same page, the ball movement is going to create more spaces for him. And again, he's going to get more gaps to allow his natural athletic ability to come shining through. So I'm not a numbers guy per se. We don't talk about numbers, and you got to get X amount of goals for us to be successful as far as individuals goes. But I think the way we're going to work things offensively as a group, he's going to have just as many opportunities. And when he's in that position, we don't expect anything else but him to bury in that type of situation. But it should be a little bit easier for him that, if you're going to key on him and you're going to send two guys to him, he's smart enough to get the ball to the next guy. And then, McConvey's going to bury it, or Turner's going to bury it, or it's going to swing over and Smitty's going to bury it. We got a lot of weapons that as a group we're going to do by committee. And then again, Connor can be Connor.
Great. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Mike Rose for 89.1 The Point. I just want to start with Dan Carey. We've kind of talked about a little bit the personnel changes you guys made offensively this offseason. Can you just take me through what the mentality was in terms of making as many changes as you did and what you were hoping to accomplish with those changes?
I think there's a lot that goes into that. So, there's some things that probably not for us to elaborate on, but you look at age, you look at salaries, you look at, chemistry on the floor, you look at, guys' potential. And so there's a lot of things that come into play there. For us, we felt like, the moves that we made, it makes room for guys. So we had Thomas McConvey coming in as the first overall pick and wanted to give him the ball more, right? Give him more opportunities to be out in certain situations that are going to help him develop and to, not just as development, but to utilize his skill, right? And not have it something that's going to be kind of on the bench or not out on the floor as much. So wanted to make some room for him, but also empower other guys, right? And that he's not the only one, but the guys that we believe in that are within our team, we wanted to give them a little bit more responsibility offensively. So, I think by the changes we've made, we're doing that. Again, Ryan Smith, I think he's a world-class player, and I think he's underrated, and I think there's a lot of people who really like his game and respect it, but he's got another level. And not just when a points production, like Hazer said, he's going to be effective for our team. He makes plays. So you can go down our list, the guys that we have, we feel strongly in what we have as far as being able to get the job done. Use one of the draft picks that we acquired to bring in a draft pick in Graydon Hogg for next year. And, it feels like that is something that we've added more depth. So we don't feel like, we've taken a step back. We know, again, the process of us, like I said earlier, to build that culture and the championship caliber team. I don't want it to be a 2-year window. I want it to be right, as a group and as a staff and as players, we want it to be, a long-term sustainable success or opportunity for success. So I think the changes we made, there's a lot of different details that go into it, but it's not something that we make quick decisions on. There's a lot of conversations, and Hazer can attest to that, probably more than my staff would like. The way I work, it's pretty, there's nothing that's a quick reaction to things. We really, maybe to a fault, kind of dive into things a little bit deeper than we would like, or these guys would like. But yeah, a lot of thought goes into it. There's some details that are definitely, within our group, but I think it's, for one thing, it's empowering other guys and giving them more opportunity.
Thanks. And Coach, for you, obviously, kind of dealing with all the new pieces that you have up front and just the turnover on the roster, has it been challenging for you trying to put things together, or how has it been, the transition with as many new faces you have on the team this year?
Yeah, no, it's it's not a hard task, especially when you got a bunch of guys that are in there, listening, communicating amongst themselves, and then executing. Right, like they're playing really well to the game plan that we're kind of giving them, and they're all in for each other, really, at the end of the day. So, it's been, again, it's been good, and right now I think where we're sitting after coming out of training camp, there's a lot of promise for this group and a lot of upside that we can definitely hit here.
And last one for Dan Coates, for you as a guy who's been around and played a long time and is a veteran returning on this team, how are you potentially looking to step up as a leader potentially with all these new faces?
Good question. I don't know if I necessarily will change kind of who I am or how I go about my business. That's just kind of who I am. I think, my message as an older guy is, it's not just one voice. It's a bunch of leaders, and it's not doesn't matter if you've played in the league for more than a decade or if it's your first or second year. Like, this is our team. Everyone has some ownership in here, and we're all leaders. I'm sure if you look at anyone on our roster, they probably wore a letter in junior lacrosse or college. So we relied not just on guys who've been there before, but we're trying to have these younger players have that same feeling of, this is our team. We do this together. This is how hard we work. But overall, I think the message has been great. Not just from, our coaches or guys who've been here for a long time. It's these young guys want it too. So, it's been an exciting group. I think it kind of keeps you young too when these guys are, coming out of college, and you kind of you realize how young they are. And it's been a lot of fun. So I'm excited about this group, and we're certainly learning together.
All right. That's all I got. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
It's all yours.
All right. Thank you. I just have two questions. Hazer, how nice is it to see Thomas Whitty crack the active roster after everything that he had been through with the with the injuries, and this year he comes back, and lo and behold, he worked hard enough and he made it. Yeah, no, it's like, say, from where he was, like I say, just over a year or so ago, and to where he is now. It's remarkable. It's just a testament to his character, how he put himself into a position to come back on the floor and I think fill a hole that we missed. Dan talked about it earlier. Like, we were missing a strong lefty defender, someone that kind of plays on the edge, and Whitty has that ability to keep guys honest, and he communicates very well. So the young guys around him as well is just gonna, again, continue to grow, and again, he's gonna lead with a good solid cross check or a slash across the wrist, and he's gonna keep those D guys out of the middle of the floor here a little bit better as well for us. So yeah, it's great. It's good to see, and I'm really glad that he's back and he put himself in the position for him and for ourselves.
Thanks, Mike. And then Dan, one for you. I've seen kind of a pattern in the players that we're signing. In the offseason, you seem to always, find a great veteran defenseman. Dan Coates was one, Brad Gillies, now it's Ethan O'Connor. What led you to pursue Ethan in free agency?
He won a championship last year. He won one in Georgia. He's got some, there's some experience there that is beneficial to us, right? And on top of that, I think his character. So actually, Dan Coates was a guy that had got to know him a little bit, and I get feedback from our players on a lot of guys because I want to make sure they're the right guys to build, a team and a culture around and within the locker room. So he does a lot of little things that somewhat go unnoticed to some people. I know, most people notice that he does block a lot of shots, but some of the little things like that, it's contagious on the bench, right? Guys see him block a big shot and soak one and not let it phase them. Like you get a jolt of energy on the bench. So I think he's a guy that brings some of that. He's got a lot of experience that he can bring to our group. And on top of it, he's just a solid guy. So definitely can play the game well. And, he's really impressed in a short time with not really knowing him too much on a personal level. Great conversations, when we were discussing the opportunity to bring him in through free agency. And he's been, he hasn't disappointed, our thoughts on what he could be. He's definitely a guy that we're excited to have on this team.
That's it for me, Warren.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll wrap it there since there are no follow-up questions. Taco Dan, this morning. Thank you all for your coverage. We really appreciate that. And we look forward to working with you again this year. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.